Now, it's no question Marvel Rivals is in between a rock and a hard place, but the question is what caused it to go this way? We've seen the infamous exit of popular Marvel Rivals YouTuber Ninja.
I love men, bro. Okay, wait.
What did he say?
Talking about the game being too toxic and that he just couldn't deal with the community anymore, causing him to just completely exit the game as a whole and move on to other games. We've seen other famous Marvel Rivals streamers like Necros talking about the current meta being broken and the flyer metas just not being fun as previous seasons of their past metas. Also, certain characters being way too nerfed to oblivion where they're basically unplayable, like Spider-Man, now making players not really want to play anymore because their previous mains aren't as fun to play anymore. They're just point blank nerfed. I mean, some of the ones that come to mind are a lot of the dive characters like Black Panther, Spider-Man. They're just trash now, to be quite honest, and if you get one of them on your team, it's just an undeniable loss at that point. And I can only imagine the people that used to play those characters at how upset they would be.
Okay. Wait, what? Wait, that was the opposite of a no reg. That was a invisible reg. What the f?
Gonna get sticky.
Oh, there was a no reg. Wait, what do you mean? Okay, this here is so inconsistent, bro. It's crazy, actually.
So as someone who is an avid Marvel Rivals player and loves the game, the community, the updates, it's my current favorite multiplayer game at the moment, point blank period. I've talked about it in previous videos but never went into depth about why I like the game so much, and in this video I'm not going to talk about as much as why I like the game. Instead, I want to talk about why does it seem that everybody's falling off the game. The Marvel Rivals update Twitter account has been talking about the player base declining by significant margins, which is a bit worrying but is expected since the video game at launch had an egregious amount of players. Obviously they weren't going to stay for the whole ride, but we've been losing the players consistently even with the monthly and weekly updates. That's a big problem. And not to mention, seeing streamers leave like Ninja is only going to be a detriment to the community. You may not like Ninja, but you want popular streamers to be playing the game because it only makes the game more popular. It makes the community more hype. It brings people, whether you believe it or not, to the game. We need people. We need popular streamers to continue streaming Marvel Rivals. We need the community to enjoy the game. You can also look at the Steam reviews. It dropped from overwhelmingly positive to now mixed. That's another bad sign. This is not looking good for the Marvel Rivals community. So in this video, I plan to propose some of the biggest problems with the Marvel Rivals current ecosystem as it is right now, and I want to also talk about in ways that these problems can be fixed, because why propose problems with no solutions, right? So with that being said, let's get into the video and talk about some of the biggest problems with Marvel Rivals as of late.
I think in the end, I think it was just the toxicity of your actual teammates towards me that just sent me over the edge. Like, I would end every stream in just the worst mood because even my teammates, and the only way to fix this was to mute everyone, right? Which is no fun for anyone. Like, just playing the game solo queue, like voice comm muting my teammates. So like, to protect my mental, it's just, I feel like it's kind of half the fun.
So the first one I wanted to talk about is the toxic community, because I feel like that's the one that everyone just loves jumping to. I mean, it's a reason Ninja bounced out of the game and countless other players and streamers as well. Talking about the game being overwhelmingly toxic, people not wanting to switch to their correct player roles, people trolling with Groot walls, motherfuckers playing DPS Jeff and not healer Jeff. Like, it's bad out here as a Marvel Rivals player. If you look at the chat logs, they've been toxic, and then I'm not even gonna lie, I've been one of those people that's gone a little bit of toxic because I've gotten heated myself. But I don't necessarily think toxicity is what determines whether a video game's ecosystem is going to live on or not. I mean, we can look at some of the most popular games. They have by far the most toxic fan bases and significantly more toxic fan bases than Marvel Rivals. And I don't care what anybody says. I stand 10 toes that I believe Call of Duty has a significantly more toxic fan base in its S&D matchmaking as opposed to Marvel Rivals.
GG's everybody.
Yo, you fucking suck, nigga. Shut up, bitch.
Okay. You're the bottom of the score. I'm turning off game chat. I'm sorry, guys.
I think the only reason you notice it more in a game like Marvel Rivals is because it's such a team-based game. So now it's not just the opposition being toxic, but it's also your own teammates. I think that's the difference. Hell, I'll tell everyone an online game here, right now, that is by far the most toxic community of all time in the gaming community. You guys probably know what I'm talking about already. It's Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. Dude, That is the most toxic. I don't care what anyone says. It's to the point where it's YouTubers are even toxic. They had such awful toxic content. Its player base was toxic. There was so much griefing and trolling. There was no sense of community, positive community at that with that game. And that game's still thriving. It's one of the most popular games of all time, even 10 plus years later.
Right there, man. Very cool stuff. Nice custom license plate too. Dino 1999. Up next, we got Judy.
So I don't think it's toxicity necessarily that declining Marvel Rivals. I think it's more attributed to the fact that people won't play their roles. Now people may say, well, that is toxicity in a sense, but we can't just say it's player-based toxicity because that's too vague. I think it's more for the fact that Marvel Rivals doesn't incentivize players to stick to their roles or to be able to role switch. And I know you can add implementations like role queue like Overwatch did, but I don't think that's the best solution because then that's going to ruin queue times and make them a lot longer. I think as opposed to what you have to do is you have to have certain implementations within the game that make it easy for reporting non-team like behavior, such as Rainbow Six Siege having you be easily banned if your team killing too many players. We need that sort of feature in this game. So for example, in Marvel Rivals, there needs to be a certain implementation that allows players to report following teammates for very specific things. If you are able to report for these specific criterias and at least more than 10 people report that person within the same day or same week, that player needs to be accounted for that. They don't have to be banned from the game completely, but at least take them out of rank because they're not playing in a ranked manner. For example, if you're playing healer, why are you going for DPS? Why are you going for DPS as Adam Warlock? Why are you going for DPS as Jeff? It's just point blank, I don't care, fucking annoying. There needs to be a specific criteria on the healer class that you can click on that player and say player ignoring healing, like something to that extent. I don't know if people are gonna say I'm insane for that, but you need to put that. And now what that's going to do is it's going to positively pressure the healers to continue to focus on healing. And look, here's the thing, I know that sounds crazy, but the network side, the Marvel Rivals developers can look at, okay, how much healing did this player do for the past 5 matches, and they can go ahead and look at that and see, oh wow, they barely did absolutely no healing for the last 5 matches. They were just going for DPS the whole time. And then you can kind of attribute that if the fact that they got reported about like 10 times by other different players. I mean, that clearly means that healer is not doing a good job. And then you can do the same incentive for other classes, obviously, like DPS and Vanguard, like these sort of things. Who's absorbing the damage, who's doing the DPS. You can look at a player's log and maybe you can see that they just don't role switch out. Like, there needs to be more. If it's a ranked game, everybody needs to be pressured to be playing in those roles, to role switch, to play in team like matter. But the fact that there's not able to be aspects easily reportable makes it a problem. If players are griefing or if they have chat logs that literally admit I'm throwing, you should be able to pull that message. It should be able to be funneled to some automation that player literally verbatim in the chat said I'm throwing, and the Marvel Rivals dev should be able to see that and be like, oh, that's an easy ban for a week on ranked. Because why would you want that player in the community? That's just making nobody want to play anymore. So again, I make this point to say that I don't think Marvel Rivals has a toxicity issue at hand about, you know, people just being assholes and mean bastards. That's just what the gaming community is. I'm sorry, I have to be upfront about that. I can't lie and be like, oh, Marvel Rivals is the only community that has it on this awful extent. Dude, that's every community, point blank, period. And I could tell you a handful of more current games right now that have more toxic communities, like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. Like, there's so many more. So at the end of the day, I think it's more of the fact that these are people's first times hopping into a team-based game. They just don't know how to play team-based games. It's obvious. They seen the Marvel tag on it. They wanted to hop into a new Marvel game, and they never played a team-based shooter before, so they don't know how to play it. They've probably never played Siege. They've probably never played Overwatch. They don't know how to play their specific roles. They're probably coming off of single-player games or more free-range multiplayer games like Call of Duty or something, so they've never played a particular heavily incentivized team-based game, so they're just straight up confused on how to play them. But time has passed, and I think we can implement those measures to kind of force more of a team-based approach, because it's getting ridiculous. Another issue we're having is healers just are not healing the flyers, especially in a flying meta. Why are you not healing the people above you? You should always be looking up, always looking around, always being cautious.
Pretty good question. Oh, I'm dying. Where the fuck are the heals? Is this Cloak and Dagger blind?
I don't fucking know, bro.
You should not see your fucking tank dying on sight in front of her face. Oh my god, bro. Late.
I think there needs to be a push for the fact that if your healer's not healing well, you should be able to type something in chat that does a quick role switch. There should be this implementation in the game that if you are currently a DPS or Vanguard and you want to go to healer because you don't feel like your healer's doing their job, you should be able to select this quick option within the character selection portion that says you want to switch with blank person for your own class. So that means that you would switch to healer and they would switch to, let's say you're playing DPS and you wanted to switch to this healer because they're being bad, you should be able to select that, hey, I want to switch with this healer and they can be DPS for me. You should be able to click that really quick, and now you can switch both sides, and now that person's DPS and you're a healer, just to kind of incentivize role switch on the fly. Because a big problem is a lot of people aren't using comms, at least on the console side for me, so nobody's able to have that sense of communication because they're not able to type fast enough in the game chat to say, hey, I can be healer, I can heal right now if you can be DPS, as opposed to just switching to healer and then that healer having to figure out, oh dang, they switched to healer, I need to go switch to DPS or Vanguard, because they're not going to think to do that. But if you have an implementation mechanic in the game that is a role switch with your own teammates very quickly on the fly, I mean, that'll make a world of a difference. That way you don't have to do role queues either, because we know that's a problem. And I know certain games do things like you must have 2 tanks, 2 healers, 2 DPS. I don't want the game to be like that, but if you have the role switch aspect, whether someone can accept that or not, or it can at least get them to think, oh, let me switch to that class, like I think that can make a huge difference. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. And another thing I want to mention is Marvel Rivals has this mechanic where you can thumbs up your teammates in how they did in the match. Now, what if we had a similar option, but also the opposite end of it? So for example, if the healers, you can actually maybe thumbs down or provide feedback or put something that didn't do sufficient healing. And I know I keep focusing on healers, but also the exact same for Vanguard or DPS. Vanguard didn't create space, DPS didn't do enough sufficient damage. Like, these sort of things that you can kind of rank amongst the opponents. And obviously the reason this is good is because if someone was voting that this particular Vanguard was just, I mean, buns, right? If he was getting constant down votes, then that clearly shows he's doing something wrong, right? I mean, there's no problem in that. I know people say that sounds harsh, but it's a ranked game for a reason. That's why they have quick play. I'm not saying put these measures in quick play. I'm saying put them in a ranked mode where people are obviously trying to play competitively. That's okay. I don't see anything wrong with that. And then Marvel Rivals can see, oh, this player is doing obviously a horrible job at DPS Vanguard, and maybe can give them a warning like, hey, you're going to be not perma-ban, obviously you don't want to be harsh with it. There's going to be some preventative measure for you because you're not playing your role sufficiently. I know people will have a lot to say about that again, even like the stuff I said before, but I'm getting sick and tired of these incompetent teammates. I mean, there needs to be some sort of preventive measures. It's a competitive game at the end of the day. And hey, we would all get judged with it as well. If I was a bad teammate, I would be getting hit with it just as much as well. So I think this can be an interesting way too to also help the team balancing dynamic. And hey, if you're getting the bad teammates, maybe put them all in their own subsequent area, because it's not fair at Grandmaster and Diamond to still be dealing with these incompetent teammates. But already, I'm gonna stop rambling on that topic. But again, I want to incentivize. I don't think Marvel Rivals has a toxicity issue as much as it has a team-based issue. Now, speaking of team-based, let's get into the other issue, which is around matchmaking.
Dude, lose 4, and they're like, whoa, we're sorry. We know you're tilted. Think psychologically. They wired it all up. They know the Grandmaster players are playing this fucking game a lot, and we're on the ranked mode. They fucking know it, man. They know they got us. So how are they going to keep us here, right? How are they going to do it? They're going to fucking rail us for 4 straight, and we're going to just fucking cry and bitch the whole time until they give us good teammates. Then we get the quick fucking 3-0, and they give us a guy like NipJ, who goes 43-3 with 22k damage. Do you understand? It's simple. This is what's going on, bro. It's unbelievable.
Now, matchmaking has been a big critique of Marvel Rivals ever since the top of the game, especially in ranked. Everybody was complaining about they felt like they were getting bad teams for 6 matches and then amazing teams for 3 matches, and it would kind of bounce between this weird cycle of bad teams, good teams, bad teams, good teams. It was a really weird dynamic, and it still continues to be like that to this day. Even I can say for myself, particularly towards the second half of season 1, I was noticing that when I would hop on for a certain day, it felt like that day I was having an amazing Marvel Rivals day filled with amazing teams, good communication. Then I would play the next day, and it felt like I was getting nothing but awful teammates. They just weren't doing their job. They're trying to play no healing rocket. Like, what the fuck is a no healing rocket? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It was so frustrating. Then to come find out after some research, it seems this is intentional. It seems Marvel Rivals tries to use an engagement optimized matchmaking as opposed to skill-based matchmaking. Now, I'll explain what that is. The concept is that skill-based matchmaking is obviously the one that we're all familiar with in this new day and age, that basically the matchmaking is based around the way you play. So if you're good, you're going to get good players. If you're bad, you get bad players. That kind of makes sense, and I know people have their own critiques with it. The Call of Duty community has complained about it for a while. Whereas engagement optimized matchmaking is kind of a weird approach that it tries to balance out this win-loss cycle to keep you hooked and addicted. So it wants you to go on this winning streak because it means you're enjoying the game, but then it's going to balance it out with some losses to make you continue to do this vicious cycle. Almost like a gambling system. It's awful. It's trash. I'm someone who used to not even be a fan of skill-based matchmaking like that, but I definitely prefer that over a gambling system type of matchmaking system. I mean, to base it, to make it this more addicting pattern as opposed to it just being a fair, balanced matchmaking system is kind of hilarious how it's actually doing the opposite effect and making people leave the game now. They just need to scrap this completely. I mean, the solution on this one's easy. Just revert that weird engage-based matchmaking and swap it back to the more traditional skill-based matchmaking, or if you really want to just take it back and make it, you know, make it based on the rank-based play. Like, why not just make it completely random on who you're getting, you know, just like the old days of gaming. But if you need some type of catered base matchmaking, then skill base is a perfectly fine way to go.
So I would recommend, if you're against 2 flying heroes, I would recommend just swapping. I wouldn't really play Panther against 2 flying heroes.
Ah, yes. Much better.
Honestly, the timing of that is genuinely comedic.
Metas, they are what you live by and die by in most online video games. The meta in Marvel Rivals is what's very interesting. It seems like nobody's enjoying where the metas are ever at, so whether they're dive based or fly based like they are right now, nobody seems to be having a good time with it. The best way I feel this can be counteracted is there needs to be good, kind of like I say there, counters. There needs to be good counters to these metas. It only ever feels like there's just a domination of a certain meta. So when there was divers, there was light anti-dive characters like Namor, or even the addition of Emma Frost. But we need heavier counters. If you're going to be bumping up the flyers, for example, in this season, like, oh my god, there's a ridiculous amount of flyers. Human Torch, Storm, Iron Man, Ultron. It's ridiculous in comparison to a game like Overwatch that does not have that many flyers. And we're only getting started in this game as well. They need to put a holdback on flyers. They need to stop adding any kind of flyers. But anyways, like I was saying, if you're going to emphasize flyers like that and make that the meta, then there needs to be heavy counters. There needs to be heavy. The range characters like Punisher and Hela need to be doing significantly more damage. Or even characters like Adam need to be good counters. I know they tried to up the damage that characters like Adam and Luna did, but it's just not enough. There's not good counters to these flyers right now. There needs to be better operations to shut down flyers, and the game just does not do a good job at counteracting its metas. When the divers were going on, like I said, it felt like there was nothing you could do to stop a good Spider-Man, nothing to stop a good Black Panther, when Black Panther wasn't nerfed to oblivion. And see, that's the problem too. It feels like when the meta gets really bad, they just nerf the character as opposed to bringing counters. See, this is actually funny enough what a certain community does, like the fighting game community. In games like Mortal Kombat, when certain characters are OP, they just nerf them to oblivion as opposed to just having a character that can counter that said character. See, video games need counters, not nerfs. That doesn't make it fun if this one character is amazing and now you just made him shit. It makes it fun instead when I'm like, oh, you're playing him? Alright, let me whip out this guy and beat your ass with this character. That's more fun instead, because you feel like you accomplished beating that guy, as opposed from a game developer just nerfing that character's damage to make you feel better about your life. So that's a fundamental problem right now. The metas are seemingly not fun. Nobody seems to be having fun playing against a 3 strategist team. It's not, the games don't feel dynamic enough. It feels like it's too much of the same. It always feels like it's either 3 healers or 2 flyers. The meta's always the same. The games aren't feeling mixed up enough, and I know that's why the developers were trying to do frequent updates and they were constantly changing the way characters have certain team ups or their particular abilities. Not their abilities, but more so just, you know, the cooldowns on certain abilities to just keep it fresh. But in my opinion, they need to do just a little bit of a better job at that, and more importantly, do a better job at counters. So right now the focus shouldn't be nerfing flyers. You don't need to do that. The focus right now should be, who are some characters we can implement to counter flyers? Who are some characters that deserve some buffs to counter the meta of flyers right now? That's what they need to focus on instead. There also needs to be implementation of just making the strategists overall better. That way we don't need to bombard our team with 3 healers, because that's just plain and simple not fun. Why not instead make some of the other awful healers like Adam Warlock Warlock and Mantis, why not just boost up their healing capabilities so that way we can have, you know, just 2 or even sometimes even 1 healer on a team and make that feasible, as opposed to needing definite 2 healers or even bumping it up to 3, because that just makes every game feel the same.
You know, I don't even want to give this guy credit, but there's just so many idiots in the community, man. I can't stand it. Like, to the trolls, like, in one day alone, I'm getting people on Lassus and I's team who pick Black Widow and then sit AFK in the spawn. I don't know. You can call me soft, call me whatever. I've been streaming for 13 years. I don't want to deal with that.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit!
The fuck you say to me, you little shit?
I don't want to deal with my teammates who I'm trying to win a ranked game with just roasting my entire life and career and friends. All right? Like, for no reason.
Now this point might be a controversial one, or one that people don't feel is a big enough critique for Marvel Rivals, but the plain-based simple critique that I think this game has is kind of interrelated to the toxic side of the community, but it's more so about no sense of community. And when I say no sense of community, there's no sense of figures in the Marvel Rivals community. I can't really name any popular Marvel Rival YouTubers at the moment or streamers. Some of the channels I can think of is channels like Cozy Cast that I really like, or Necros in the streaming side, but nobody else is really making a statement. I enjoyed actually watching Ninja when he was playing Marvel Rivals, but now he's gone, and we've seen other streamers as well like Tim the Tatman be gone. There's not really a sense of community to Marvel Rivals. I don't know how to say it. There just doesn't seem to be a big entity. Like, for example, with the Warzone community, there is various YouTubers off the top of your head that you can name that are playing Warzone right now. It was the same thing when Valorant was going on, Rust, Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. These communities have these streamers and these YouTubers that you can just look at, and you know, and you think of the game when you see that said streamer or YouTuber, if that makes sense. You can even look at the streaming numbers for Marvel Rivals. They're not that great. They're nothing what they were of when the game launched, because everybody was hopping on the bandwagon of playing that certain game at the time, which is respectable and we get, but we couldn't keep those big heads to keep playing the game. They left for whatever reason, we don't know, but we need some new developments of some new faces for Marvel Rivals, and they're just plain and simple isn't really many, if any. And that's a big problem, because when you have a big community for a video game like Fortnite, for example, that had these plethora of streamers and YouTubers, it makes people want to play the game. It makes people want to be them. It adds a sense of community. They do the promotion for the game. Marvel Rivals doesn't have that. So that was an interesting dynamic I want to bring up. How this can happen is I don't know. I think hopefully Marvel Rivals can incentivize more streamers to come in and play their game as opposed to wanting to play other games. I think they can get back some of those people that came in the first season if they continue to update the game properly, if the game continues to get promoted well, and if, I don't know, if they do promotions for the game, they just need to do a better job at getting some of those big head streamers and YouTubers to come back to Marvel Rivals and promote the game, play the game, enjoy the game, because I want a sense of community again. It just doesn't feel like it's there right now. It feels like it's actually on the downward spiral of a community. It's actually about to be, you know, if it's going at this pace, it's gonna die fast. And I don't see Marvel Rivals being a game that will ever be dead, particularly like certain games die within a year or a month. I think this game has some legs on it, but we need some faces for this video game if we want it to continue to thrive, and that's the most important part. I want Marvel Rivals to thrive. And so I guess this is where I come to the end of the video. Marvel Rivals, look, I love the game, I adore the game, I think it has potential, and that's why I make this video about the problems and solutions that Marvel Rivals has and can have. I don't know, I don't think it's a game that's gonna die. I think it's a game that's gonna live on easily. I think the game's too fun. I think the Marvel IP for it just incentivizes it to live on because the movies and the TV shows come out, so it's a good implementation for skins and updates and characters. Marvel's just, it's on the top of the game. It's beating DC right now as a whole with having the better movies, shows, games, clearly. I think it's here to stay, but the question is to what capacity? The question is Marvel Rivals going to be able to thrive like other games do, like Warzone and Fortnite? Is it going to be able to have long legs like these other online games? Will it be a game like Minecraft or GTA Online that can live on for 10 years? Or is it going to be more of a game that has its certain community, big community at that for the first year or two, and then kind of dwindles off and has a niche following like Overwatch 2? That's what I want to know. And me personally, I think Marvel Rivals can be this game that lasts for a long time, but they got to do it right, and they got to take into the critiques ASAP, else it's not going to make it. With that being said, I appreciate y'all for watching the video. You guys mean the world to me. I'm going to continue making videos. This was one I had to make because I just found the topic really interesting and I wanted to put my voice out there. And I want to know what y'all think too. What do you think Marvel Rivals needs in order to save itself? We don't want it to decline. We don't want it to end. They need to keep updating the game. They need to keep implementing the critiques that the community is giving, and let's see if this game has long legs. But until then, I guess we'll find out.